It's all about the relationships. We have relationships at home, we have relationships at work. Relationships are everywhere, and successful ones take time, attention, and much nurturing. Some months ago, we published a Mentor of the Month with Dr. David Penner from the Gottman Institute about strengthening relationships. It was received so positively that we asked if Laura Heck, the master trainer for the Gottman Institute, would come and train us in relationship skills. And we were so excited that she agreed. There are few with her background or skill. So let's have a crown conversation with Laura Heck.
I think you're good to my brand, y'all. Hi. Good morning. So my name is Laura Heck. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I practice here in Salt Lake City, Utah. I slept in my own bed last night. Nobody folded my clothes for me. I also have a practice in Seattle, Washington. I recently relocated from there, so I do like Skype therapy with my clients in Washington. And I am the director, or was the director of professional development for the Gottman Institute. Had a baby, so took some time off. And I'm also the master trainer for the Gottman 7 Principles program. So I just want to ask a couple of you, how many of you, just by a show of hands, have heard of the name Dr. John Gottman as far as relationships, research? Okay. How many are familiar with this book? Can you see that? Either you have been the weird one on the plane reading it and everybody knows you're in relationship demise, or somebody has slipped a copy under your seat. How about this? Have you ever heard of a gentleman who has been able to predict with 94% accuracy, with 15 minutes of meeting a couple, whether or not they will divorce or stay together? Have you heard of that? Okay, so in the book Blink, Malcolm Gladwell wrote about that. And Dr. Gottman is pretty popular based on that one statistic. But what I want to do is I really want to talk about relationships with you. I want to talk about how you can keep your relationships healthy. Did you know that dentists are the #1 highest married profession out of all other professions? There's no doubt, I mean, I know you're a good-looking group because I have seen you with the lights on. You have no doubt attracting a mate. I just want to make sure that you keep your mate and that you also keep them happy. So a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about today have to do with your intimate relationships, but they're also directly applicable to the relationships that you have with your team members. So I want you to wear 2 hats today as you're listening to me. A lot of the research that I'm going to be quoting is coming from the research of Dr. John Gottman, which is why I'm here. He's very expensive, he's old, and he doesn't look as good as me, so that's why I'm here. Okay? So, you're laughing, which means that some part of that was funny. I don't really know what part, because it was all true. So let me take you back. I'm just going to tell you a story, take you on the journey of the history and what we know is true to be about the research that's been done in relationships. And hopefully you can stick some of this in your pocket, take it with you, and enhance your relationship when you go home today. Or maybe tonight. Bow, chicka, bow, bow. Okay? How many of you are actually sitting next to your significant other? I'm just curious. Okay, we've got some people. Feel free to put your toe underneath the table and work it up their leg and just really get the feelings going. So let's talk about research. Dr. John Gottman is an older gentleman, and he has been doing research for over 40 years with over 4,000 couples. He started off at MIT studying mathematics, and then he had a roommate that was studying psychology, and since I happen to love psychology, I can tell you that it's the best thing to study when you're in school. And John became attracted to that and promptly finished up his mathematics degree at MIT, switched over and got his PhD in psychology. He is a dynamo. So John is basically like the Oprah of psychology, of research, of couples therapy. He's been working with his wife doing couples therapy. So after he got his degree in mathematics and got his PhD, he was at the University of Indiana as an assistant professor. His best friend, Bob Levinson, was also there. And they were having a conversation. And basically, John and Bob were having a really tough time in their own personal relationships. And Bob said to him, we can either study relationships or have good relationships. And we're researchers, John. So they set out to figure out, that was a joke. They set out to find out what is it that is going to make relationships work. At the time in psychology, nobody actually had evidence to back up what worked when working with couples. Everybody had a theoretical idea of what worked. In fact, there was this ridiculous, I won't say ridiculous because maybe you went to see this person at one time. There was a couples therapist that would invite couples in, and part of the therapy was to give each person a foam bat. They would stand across from each other and they would take turns talking about what they were frustrated and then beating their partner. So we don't do that anymore. Now we know what works. So Bob and John started their research by bringing couples in to a laboratory setting, and they would hook them up to EKG monitors so that they could test how fast their blood was flowing, how much their heart was pumping. They also wanted to measure how much they were sweating. And they put a monitor underneath their chair called the jiggleometer, just to see how much they were twitching around while they were having a conversation. And they had couples that were separated after 8 hours come back and just simply have a conversation. I want you to talk for 10 minutes about your day. That's it. We're just going to videotape you and just take notice. And then they said, so this is, I actually tell people in my practice, this is what I do. Say, I'm kind of like a dentist. I want to poke around and find your soft spots. So then what they did was they said, I want you to have a 10-minute conversation about an area of continued disagreement. And we're just going to watch you. And that's it. That was the entire research. They actually didn't have a theory in mind. They had no idea what they're looking for. They were just like early day astronomers watching the stars looking for patterns. So they sent the couples away. They gathered their data. It was about 35 years ago. Now jump forward 25 years ago. Dr. Gottman is now at the University of Washington. He has money to do what he's studying now, because before he was sort of a laughingstock. Because what he wanted to do was he wanted to predict behavior. He wanted to know with certainty what was going to happen with these couples. At the time in psychology, you can only predict behavior with 9% accuracy. We all know, because I already shared the punchline, Dr. Gottman is now able to predict with 94% accuracy not only one person's behavior, but two, whether or not they're going to stay together or divorce. So now he's at the University of Washington, and he opens up what's called the Love Lab. The Love Lab is an apartment-like setting where he would invite newlyweds in to spend 24 hours, where they would have a chance to just relax, kick back, and spend some time together. And he really wanted to try and study couples. This is before like Big Brother and all of the reality shows where we actually do watch people. So he would have cameras bolted to the walls. There would be researchers back behind a two-way mirror coding facial expressions and what they were saying. Again, he was testing to see how fast their blood was flowing. He was also, anytime they would urinate, he would go and take urine samples to test their stress hormone. And then when everything was said and done, he drew blood to take a look at their immune system. But for the most part, this was a really relaxing time for these couples to come and spend 24 hours in this apartment lab. And it was beautiful. So what did he find? So he watched these couples, then he analyzed the data, and then he sent them away. Here's something really cool. We talked about what sort of stuck out, what patterns arose. 6 years after the marriage, after having these newlyweds come into the apartment lab, Dr. Gottman checked back in with them. Out of 120 newlyweds, 17 couples had divorced. What's the difference? What do we know about the couples whose relationships failed and the couples whose relationships stayed together? Here's one interesting statistic that I will be focusing on and that I'd like to talk deeper at, is whether or not those couples that ended up divorcing, they had turned toward one another in that apartment lab 33% of the time. I'll explain what turning toward is in case you're like, what is that? The couples who had stayed together had turned toward each other 86% of the time. Ding, 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 light bulb moment goes off. What is it about turning toward that is so powerful that couples are actually divorcing over it if they're not turning toward each other? So this is the part where you turn your ears on, if you've been ignoring me the rest of the time and just wondering how I'm walking around on this stage with these heels on. Now we're going to talk about turning toward. We make bids for connection all day long. Bids for connection is basically this question: will you be there for me? I need you. Are you there? A bid for connection can be so minute that you can actually miss it. Here's an example. You're at the grocery store. You turn to your partner and you say, honey, are we out of Cascade? Your partner turns towards you and says, I don't know, and you keep moving on. That's your partner turning away from you. You say, honey, are we out of Cascade? Your partner says, I don't know. Instead, reaches for the Cascade and puts it in the grocery cart. What's the difference? The difference is that through those actions, your partner is saying, I don't know, but if it's important to you, if you're thinking about it, then it's important to me. It's a very small gesture, and turning toward and turning away can get mistaken very easily. What's turning against? Now let's say that my husband's walking out the front door, and being the amazing wife that I am, I say, honey, I'm going to run to the grocery store today, and I need to pick up something for dinner, and is there anything that you have been craving that I can get for you? He turns to me and he says, why are you always doing this? You know that Mondays is my only opportunity to go out for happy hour with my buddies. You're guilt-tripping me again. This is ridiculous. I'm not coming home till 10 o'clock at night. Why would you even be thinking about dinner? That's turning against. So here is your partner making a bid for your connection, and you have an opportunity to turn toward, turn away, or turn against. Why is this important? Because we know that in the apartment lab, those couples that were turning toward their partners 86% of the time are still together. And those who were turning away or against their partners ended up getting a divorce. We have a motto at the Gottman Institute. It's called Small Things Often. Contrary to popular belief, Valentine's Day is coming up. I'm not going to tell you that you need to spend a lot of money on your partner in order for them to be happy. Diamonds are nice, but you don't, just kidding. You don't have to take them out on an elaborate dinner. You don't have to do anything grand. But what you do need to do is, from this moment forward, make sure that you are doing the small things often on a very regular basis, that when your partner is reaching out and saying, are you there for me? Do you love me? You're responding by turning toward them, as opposed to turning away, which is essentially ignoring your partner's bid or turning against. So let me talk a little bit about what's called the emotional bank account. I like this idea simply because I'm a goal setter. And if I think of my life, my relationship with my partner, as an emotional bank account, I think that at times, all I need to do is just put deposits in. I can take a few withdrawals out, but we're still going to be good. So if you think about your relationship, that you're constantly putting these tiny little deposits in, that means that when you actually hit a rough patch, when something external to your relationship tossles it up a bit, you're good. I like it personally because I like to sit around in my gray hooded sweatshirt with a green face mask on, and I like to fart, okay? And I want to make sure I said it in a big group. I did. Oh, man. It happened. I have no filter, guys. I'm so sorry. Which is why I need to make these deposits in my relationship, because when I say things like this, that's a big withdrawal. Okay? Sexiness factor goes down. So you are building up this emotional bank account. So we talked about how you can do it. Let me tell you about an exercise that I want you to do with your partner the next time you see them. How many of you are going, I don't know how long this goes for. Do you go home tonight? Tomorrow. Okay. So some of you might be rejoining your partner tomorrow. Tomorrow is when I want you to start this. You are going to be doing an exercise called the stress-reducing conversation. And this is threefold. If you turn actually in your notebook, I have the instructions on 76A. The stress-reducing conversation has three purposes. One, you're getting the opportunity to turn toward your partner in a big way. You're getting the opportunity to say, when you need me, I am here. Two, how many of you, by a show of hands, have a pretty stressful job? Like, kind of sort of stressful. Some of you are like, well, I'm shouldering the stress for you. I don't know, why aren't you stressed out? Okay? We all sort of have stressors that are external to the relationship. The goal is to keep those external stressors outside of the relationship. So you are creating a barrier, a buffer, so that all of those stressors do not enter in and take withdrawals from your emotional bank account. Okay, so here's what you do. At the end of the day, most of the time when you're rejoining one another, you're having a 20-minute conversation. One person gets to go first, 10 minutes, you are the talker. The speaker gets to whine and complain about anything outside of the relationship. Anything. If you get into a topic that is a touchy topic on the relationship, then you need to divert to a different topic. This is not an opportunity to talk about something that's frustrating you about your partner. That's another conversation. These are things like the car ran out of gas, I was in traffic, I got mud on my dress before I presented, whatever it might be. Okay? Now, listener, you get the opportunity to be there for your partner, to have open ears to practice active listening skills. So you're going to be saying empathetic statements like, oh, uh-huh, oh, okay, cool, oh, wow, that sounds rough, okay. So you're listening to your partner. You're not trying to divert your partner's attention to something that you want to hear about. You're just allowing them to vent their frustration. Here's two pitfalls. Out of men or women, who are more likely to want to try and solve the problem? I heard like a higher pitch say, men. Yes, we are more likely to want to try and solve the problem. When your partner presents you and serves up all this juicy material and you're like, wow, you're really stressed out about that, let me tell you how you can fix this. What the message is actually sending is, you're not smart enough to fix this on your own. Let me tell you, as much as you want to help, wait. So I just ask that you suspend the opportunity to try and solve your partner's problems until the very end, and wait to be invited to solve that problem. So how many of you seen that YouTube clip, Nail in Head? Oh, it's great. If I had longer than 20 minutes, I would have shown this clip, but I think I'm more interesting to watch, apparently. But it's this woman that is complaining about having pain in her forehead, and she has a ginormous nail sticking out of her forehead. I know that sounds awful right now, but it's comical. And the husband is doing his absolute best to avoid saying, honey, I think maybe you should remove the nail from your head if you're having all this pain. So he's trying his best to be empathetic. That's what I want you to do, is try not to solve the problem. Second pitfall that people often fall into when they're listening to their partner whine and complain about their day is oftentimes they take the other person's side. So if I come home and I say, I'm just so embarrassed. I was late this morning to work, and I had this big board meeting, and I walked in, and I just sort of got scooted to the end of the boardroom table, and I sat down, and my boss made a big deal and pointed me out to everybody else and kind of reamed me, and I'm just really upset about that. And my partner says, I can't believe he waited this long. You're never on time for anything. Okay? So don't do that either. Here's an easy way to avoid that. Even if you take the other person's side, which you're going to because you don't have to always agree with your partner, try to find something with their mood or with their feelings that you can empathize with. So what was the feeling that she had telling that story? She was embarrassed. So you could simply say an empathetic statement like, wow, that must have been really embarrassing. And you know how she feels? Like you're putting deposits in that emotional bank account. Cha-ching! Okay, so this is the stress-reducing conversation. Got it? 20 minutes total, 10 minutes for the speaker, then you swap roles. For the first time that you are starting to do this, I want you to set an alarm on your phone. Now this brings a good up topic. What are you doing with the TV and the kids and all of those things when you're having the stress-reducing conversation? Turning them off. So we're taking all distractions out of the room and we're turning them off. All right. So, guys, I have some exercises for you to do. Before I get there, I wanted to remind you that you are also putting a hat on. So, how many people could you have a stress-reducing conversation with that you work with? You probably already have these stress-reducing conversations. Do you ever just on a lunch break sit down and kind of vent to your coworker or to your teammate? You're doing this already. Okay. Let's talk about if we could turn the lights up a little bit, if that's possible. I'm going to have you start working on something. What I'd like for you to do is think about a time in your day when you can have your stress-reducing conversation with your partner. This is going to be a time, often it's at the end of the day. If you have children, it's going to be a time when the kids are distracted or doing something else where you can divert all of your attention to your partner. It might be after they go to bed. I had clients, 3 times I sent them home with this as homework, and 3 times they came back and said, we can't do it. I wanted to know why. We don't have enough time. If you don't have 20 minutes, do you have 10 minutes? If you don't have 10 minutes, do you have 5 minutes? Any time is better than no time. Second thing they said is, well, there's no time that we have during the day without the kids. Do you know when they ended up having their stress-reducing conversation? In the shower. I like that. That is definitely deposits in the emotional bank account. So now what I want you to do is I'm just going to take maybe about 30 seconds to a minute. I'd like for you to think about a time. If you're sitting next to your partner, brainstorm and talk to each other. If you're not, just jot it down in your notebook. When is a good time for you to have a stress-reducing conversation? We're going to make this a habit, a ritual that you do on a daily basis, Monday through Friday. Preferably at the end of the day. If that doesn't work, we'll find another time. Okay. So I think all the couples are on this side then. So here we're going to move on to another exercise. This is on page 76B as in boy. This exercise is intended for you to think about all of the ways that you can build up your emotional bank account. And now I want you to start turning your attention toward the people that you work with. So after all, hopefully you're getting 8 hours of rest every night, right? Okay. Then 8 hours are probably spent with your work, place of employment. probably more because we're Americans. And then the rest is with your partner. So the people that you work with are just as important for the health of your relationship. So I want you to think about ways in which you can turn toward them. So we're going to get to that exercise. But right now, 76B, the emotional bank account exercise, there is a list of 48 activities that some couples tend to do together. What I would like for you to do is take some time by yourself and just look through the list and point out the ones that are most important to you. What are the ones that you most appreciate that your partner does with you, where you feel like they are turning toward you? They're putting deposits. So you're going to go through and circle the items, the activities that you most appreciate your partner having done in the past, because what you'd like is probably for them to do it again. And then tomorrow night when you rejoin your partner, or tonight, or if they're sitting next to you, I'd like for you to verbally express to them how much you appreciate that. Here's something really great about turning toward. Turning toward leads to more turning toward. It is one of those spirals that you want to get going. And when you verbally express to your partner what it is that you really like, you're letting them know, they're not guessing, you're letting them know, I love that you're doing that for me, I want you to do more of it. And when you feel appreciated for what you're doing or what someone else is doing for you, you want to do more of it. You're getting that spiral going. So I'm going to give you some time, look through the list of 48 and circle the top 3 that you most appreciate your partner doing for you. If you don't see this on the list, write it down below if there's something that you have on your mind that your partner has done with you and for you. Okay? I'm going to give you about 60 more seconds, then we'll move on to the next exercise. I lied. We're going to move on to the next exercise. Okay, this is where you get to collaborate with the people at your table, probably the person next to you. So if you turn to the right, make buddies with the person next to you. I would like for the 2 of you to brainstorm a list of maybe 10. We'll shoot for 5. We'll see how far we get. 10 ways in which team members can turn toward one another. Things that you can do for one another. Ways in which you can say, are you there for me? And you can respond with, hell yeah, I am. So you're going to make a list of 10 ways in which team members can turn toward one another. So remember, we're having 2 hats, intimate relationship, team member relationship. What are ways that you can turn toward your partners, your team members on a daily basis? I'm really interested to see what you write down, so I'm going to wander around the room and look over your shoulder. I'm going to do this for about 3 minutes. Go. I'll have you wrap up in about 30 seconds. Okay. Whatever you don't get done, you can always do more. Did you come up with some good ideas from the person next to you? Are they pretty smart? Okay. I have one more exercise I want to introduce. I know. This is why I usually have a bell that I bring with me, because it's nicer than me screaming, quiet coyote. Teachers, you get that. I know you do. All right. So now you have made a list of ways in which team members can turn toward each other so that you're putting deposits in that emotional bank account. The very last one that we won't be doing together, but I'd like for you to start thinking about, is ways in which you can create rituals in your office setting with your team members. Rituals are things that you do that are predictable, because what we know is that when we get busy, one of the first things that goes out the window is your spare time or fun time or time to connect or whatever it might be. So we know unless we put it on the calendar or we make it something that we do every single day or every lunchtime or every birthday, that it won't get done. So the next thing to think about are, what are rituals within the office that you can do that makes a predictable time for you to connect and put deposits in that emotional bank account. I'll give you an example. I'm a jokester at the Gottman Institute. Anytime the big bosses would go on vacation, we would prank them. This was something that we all got together and did, and it was a lot of fun. So we saran wrapped the big boss's office, every single thing in there, got it totally done in saran wrap, tipped everything upside down, so when he came home, it was all done. Then I went on vacation. Yeah, actually it was maternity leave, so they had a long time to prank me. But these are things that you can think about that makes for fun in the office. We also would do daily walks. So for lunch, what we would do is we would take our 60-minute lunch break. 40 of it we would eat, 20 of it we would walk. While we would walk, we would have our stress-reducing conversation. So we had little buddies in the office that we would do this with. These are rituals that we had an opportunity to implement in the office where we had predictable ways to turn toward one another. Okay, so it's all about putting those deposits in. It doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be grand. Small things often. Okay, that's all I have for you guys. That's it. All right. Thank you so much.